A Wagner mercenary who crossed U.S.-Mexican border was honored in Russia weeks before arrest. A self-confessed veteran of Russia's Wagner paramilitary group arrested for crossing into the U.S., blah, 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 31 years old, identified as that guy by multiple sources apparently, had a drone in his backpack, a couple of passports, and some cash. What was he doing? Why do you think Trump wants to close both the Canadian and Mexican border, or control the flow of immigrants? Stop the flow thereof. Yeah, it has to do with a lot of illegals and all the things that he told you on the campaign trail. Yeah. But it's also national security interests because of, well, things such as this one, people such as Timur or whatever his name was. Some months prior to this, Vladimir Putin threatened the United States with hybrid warfare using Canada and Mexico. There was this case, I don't know, maybe 6 months, maybe a year ago, of some Russian national supposedly snooping around some U.S. intelligence officer's property, got shot down, ended up, got killed. We found out he didn't have any ID on him, but was later identified as, I want to say, Dagestani or Chechen, something or other. I don't know. If this Timur was caught on the US side already, right? How many more Wagner mercenaries are able to slip through the cracks? Through some of these tunnels or whatever, or were able to before Trump started cracking down, and still probably can, right? Wagner got dissolved or dispersed. Some of them got sent to Africa, some of them got sent to Belarus, and, you know, some of them went elsewhere. And after, coincidentally, obviously, their leader or their entire leadership died in a plane crash over Russia. Oh, man. So in the last 2-3 days, we had two plane crashes on the East Coast. One where a U.S. military Black Hawk helicopter was flying too high and in the path of a commercial airliner. Another was a medvac jet going ultimately to Mexico, making a stop in between here and there, carrying some Mexican nationals, from what I understand. It's insinuated anyway. And according to at least one expert, he thinks there was an explosion on board the plane before it started careening down and crashed into the ground. And from some of the videos of the jet going down, it looks like it was on fire before it hit the ground. So I'm not. This could very well be coincidental, right? It could be, but I guarantee you that's not what the U.S. intelligence services are thinking, and they're investigating um, Russian connection to this hybrid warfare, and they won't even make a peep of it unless they're ready to go to war with Russia, or really send a lot of military support to Ukraine. Then maybe they'll insinuate something, and if they're really ready to go to war, then you know they'll invent shit such as this, or use this. They'll tell you the truth about this, if indeed it is what I suspect it may be. Again, I'm not saying I know. Obviously, I don't. There's no proof. At least we don't have any. But this is to me, this is too much to be coincidental. So anyway, some potential evidence, however spurious or you want to call it conjecture, I don't give a shit. Russia is probably the best at electronic warfare. So scrambling GPS, confusing your onboard navigation. So you don't know how high you're flying, for example, right? Or where you are exactly, for example, as in the case of this helicopter. And people may want to say, well, but there's been a lot of these types of near crashes. Also, no actual crashes, right? But just an environment ripe for this sort of thing where it just needs a little tiny push to really make it happen. Yeah? Okay, cool. And even like the day prior, before this Black Hawk hit this or collided with this airplane, there was another close call. So, I mean, if there have been close calls, especially as of late, well, then, I mean, okay, right? That's perhaps more evidence for Russian interference, hybrid warfare. The other plane was carrying apparently some a Mexican patient, a child, and her mom, who were the beneficiaries of some foundation that allowed them to get medical care in the United States. They're being flown on a jet from US to Tijuana. Someone's spending a lot of money to make this happen, right? And then you have the cartels in Mexico with Trump looking like basically declaring a war, or at the very least, for the time being, really dipping into their or preventing them from making a lot of money, basically, right? Cutting into their profits with stemming the flow of immigrants, which they make a lot of money with because they charge a lot of money to bring them across the border. And then some of them are also drug mules and things of that nature. So stopping the flow of drugs and immigrants, cartels going to feel this financially. And then there's also the potential of, kinetic warfare with the cartels. So they're definitely motivated to, well, maybe help Russia get some of these guys across, right? Some of these saboteurs, Russian military, to get them across the border to go, wreck shit, terrorize the U.S. population. Putin and Trump are negotiating. They're apparently in talks. Putin's no stranger to threatening people overtly or insinuating all types of stuff. So while these two are negotiating, if Putin is able to pull the strings on a couple of plane crashes without even explicitly threatening the president of the United States, maybe he can get himself a better deal if he shows him what he's capable of, or insinuates, shows him in a way, yeah, without saying it explicitly, what he's capable of doing in the United States. Maybe he can, at least that's what he thinks, pressure the U.S. president to, get him a better deal or whatever. So this is just, again, I'm not saying I don't have any proof or whatever, but this is, I guarantee you, U.S. intelligence services are looking into all of this, considering what's going on and whatever. So, for example, just a scenario, that plane headed to Tijuana, how difficult would it have been for the cartel to, put a cell phone bomb or something like those Israeli pagers on the mothers of the child, or put it in her purse, right, in her phone, put some kind of a small explosive device, enough to bring a plane down or something like that. in that lady's purse, or with this other plane crash. They could have almost, I don't know, if not just confused the pilot of the Black Hawk, maybe they could have, made them, knowing what their flight paths are, they could have, manipulated the Black Hawk helicopter's flight path into the flight path of this airliner, right? Just by scrambling his instruments on board and whatever have you. And, you know, I don't know that anyone has ever really talked about this, and if they have, then it's probably just been, on a small scale in conspiracy circles. Has Alex Jones ever told you about this? But when you look at airliners crashing, not being shot down by, Russian militants or whatever, right? Missiles, errant or otherwise missiles, but just what is sold to us as accident, right? Of planes in general. It's it's rare, especially these days, that planes crash. It's pretty rare. But when you look at the number of plane crashes overall and the circumstances surrounding them, it would seem to me that Western officials or Western government affiliated sports teams and, in some way, shape, or form, representatives of the Western regime, right? If only in prestige, it would seem to me that people like that crashing are overrepresented when it comes to plane crashes. Why is that? And why is there a lot of the times a Russian connection, or maybe okay. So in 1980, I think it was, the U.S. Olympic boxing team was on their way to Poland, on their way to the Moscow Olympics, and that plane came down and all of them died, right? Then there was this accident that I just found out about in, I think, 61 or something like that. U.S. Ice skating team going to Prague, which I think was at the time part of the Warsaw Pact, going to compete in, a Soviet country or a country under Soviet influence, and they came down. There, something malfunctioned on board the plane, and they crashed. Then there was this latest plane. Recently, not that long ago, a few years ago, we had the entirety of the Polish government going down in a plane crash in Russia, and it was pretty clear that, the official story was bullshit. If you investigate that crash, it's pretty clear what happened there, right? Russia brought the plane down. Somebody within Russia brought that plane down. Also, explosions on board and things of that nature, just like Prigozhin's plane, right? Explosions on board, the plane goes down. A bottle of wine with the bomb in there. And now we have this latest crash with U.S. Olympic skater hopefuls and former Russian ice skating medalists. I don't know if they were Olympic or world champions medalists. They were training the Americans to compete against the Russians. You know what I mean? So it just seems to me like, and it doesn't happen all that often, but still, compared to how much planes in general, big planes, come down and crash, it would seem to me that people that represent Western governments or are, political figures, important political figures, it just seems to me like that they're just overrepresented in these crashes. And these are the types of people, these are VIPs, right? If anyone's going to be flying first class or protected in some way, shape, or form, it's going to be those people, right? And yet, it would seem that they're overrepresented when it comes to these crashes. And however spurious or vague these connections may be, there always seems to, sometimes it's pretty blatant, right? As in the case of the Polish heads of state going down, dying in Russia, gunshots on the ground and things of that nature, right? You know, this is, to me, this is just, I'm not saying every single one of these instances, I'm not saying that none of these were accidents, but it's pretty blatant what's going on, right? Like, someone may want to say to themselves, well, but why would they target, athletes, Olympic athletes? Well, because Olympics is war, right? This is not only symbolically, but it's a type of warfare. The reason why Olympics came to be was to bring peace to the world, right? Was to get countries to channel some of this competitiveness and desire to fight one another into an arena where the fighting is controlled and, people don't generally die. That's why, and that's why the Olympics are taken so seriously by everybody, and especially empires that are always in competition with one another. That's why you have all these PED scandals, and they're really just trying to do everything to outdo each other because it's prestige, and it is a type of warfare. So, yeah. Hybrid warfare is not something that's really talked about much in the United States, but it's been a very, very hot topic in Europe. And there's been lots of it happening, right? Communication cables getting cut down, munitions factories exploding in Western Europe, the CEO of Rheinmetall assassination plot with other plots to assassinate many of them, that Russian helicopter pilot that, you know, betrayed Russia getting gunned down. There's been, the flow of immigrants through Belarus into Poland and Western Europe, all sorts of, covert hybrid activities, hacking, these types of things, cyber attacks. Not only have they been going on for a long time, there's been a major uptick, it would seem, in this type of warfare, and Putin's on record saying that that's what we're going to do. So, are these latest two crashes in the United States with all the weird, circumstances, connections? Am I saying that that's what that is? I mean, if I had to bet, I'd say yes. And I think, I don't know if people should be expecting more, because U.S. intelligence they're on it now, right? And it's going to be a lot harder to do this type of stuff if indeed somebody is doing it. But I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if there was more stuff like that happening, or, train derailments, especially trains with dangerous chemicals on them, or, anyway. And then there's been, I don't know if they like ever told us what that was about, but then there was all these drones flying around on the East Coast too. Don't know. It could be, also, it could be a part of the psyop on, or a psyop on the part of the Western world, if they are indeed planning to go to war with Russia to get popular support. That could be that too. But I mean, yeah, if I had to bet, I'd say that this is Russian hybrid warfare, and there might be more shit like this happening. It's just so rare for, especially in the United States, for planes to just fall out of the sky like that. And then you have two in the last couple of days, and it's what, three, really? Three aircraft. And it's like, it's affecting the US military. There's like a Mexico connection. There's that Russia connection. And once again, we have American athletes going down and dying in a plane crash. Just to me, that's just, it's too much to ignore, right? Again, no proof, but and even if this isn't part of, look, Russia is for sure, right? They promised, and there's evidence that they're doing this, carrying out hybrid warfare against the United States within the United States, okay? They're doing it. So if it's happening, what are the incidents? What are some instances of this happening? Okay, you tell me. I'm just saying. You tell me.